Hi, I'm Jayashree Kurup. I'm editor MBTV. You're watching The Property Show. I have with me Anshuman Magazine. He's the chairman and CEO, India, SEA, ME, and Africa, CBRE. We were talking about the future of commercial spaces. We apologize for that technical break. We're back again. Anshuman, thank you for joining us. Anshuman, you were speaking about how people will value the office spaces all over again. And we're talking about what is the new distancing norm and how it will impact the amount of space that companies need.
Yeah, thanks, Shashi. What I was mentioning is that certainly, going forward, there will be more space required for the number of people, and per square foot space requirement will go up because of the norms, the health and safety norms. The other thing I want to say is that there's this one myth which has been busted in this COVID-19 and work from home situation, is that earlier I remember there used to be discussions and that how work-life balance improves if you're working from home, right? So it's clearly it does not, which everybody must have seen. For almost 90% of the people, it did not, because there are no timings. So people are working longer hours, and at the same time, you are just inside, confined to the house. You're not physically being able to interact with people. Bonding is not there. Learning is not there because you're not meeting people, face to face. So which also, I know in our company also some people used to come and say that, look, can we allow some of these people to work from home? And he said, look, I'm not sure. Now we don't go those requests because I think people have realized, like I mentioned earlier, your work-life balance is becoming worse. Working at home, you're confined and you're working from till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, depending on what your work is. So that's why I feel the office will be appreciated more. At the same time, the whole idea of, look, now an office is not required, you can get the work done. Yes, you can get fair amount of work done without being in the office physically, but at the same time, people are forgetting that we still need to attract talent, retain them, motivate them, make them productive, and that can't be done effectively remotely. And like I mentioned, most of the houses in India are still small. We have technology issues, bandwidth issues still. Data security is a major challenge. People live in joint families, be it your in-laws, your parents, in many cases. So it's not easy to just work out of home. It's not like everybody has big houses where you can carve out of space where you can work. So office, people come back, more space will be required, no doubt. And like I mentioned, there is, it will be, and people will be thankful that they are able to meet. So everybody's actually, a lot of people I know are desperately waiting back to get into the office and and like I mentioned earlier, large number of our employees are millennials, and that's the reason why over the years people have invested so much in their office. There's so much thought about the office design, the facilities, what the young people want, how can they interact better, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And that reason is that to compete, you have to compete for talent. And that talent will work in an environment which they like.
So talk about facilities. Increasingly, we saw a lot of thought that was going into what facilities to provide so that you could keep the millennials engaged. And even when you were in the office, it was not all work. There was a significant amount of play and recreation involved. Will that change in any way?
It's only going to improve further because, again, general facilities, of course, were, you get a fairly good place where you can have what we call a cafeteria, but cafeteria gives it a different picture. It's much better than a cafeteria, So you got, proper coffee places, there's TV, there's people who can, the whole idea is how people can interact. And it's not only for fun, you're exchanging ideas. You're talking about how to tackle problems, how to deliver your new project. So a lot of interactive areas, collaboration, what we call collab areas. Technology plays a major part, and it's going to play even a bigger part now because one thing certainly, which at least in the short term will come down, is travel. So whilst people would come back to offices, the travel overall, a lot of companies realize that some of the travel one can avoid because of technology, etc. And which is good for the environment, and then I think good for health of most people. So technology will play a major part. Then how do you deliver to your clients more efficiently? So the future office space will only evolve, and the only area where there will be big focus, I mentioned, is health and safety. But otherwise, everything is going to even improve further. And of course, there's question marks on how to utilize some of the closed spaces. So now, even if it's a conference room, how long and how many people can be there, and for how long? Because of social distancing, etc. So all that will happen. But I don't see any slowdown in other facilities, be it recreational, be it collaboration areas, technology. This is going to even get better.
So talk about collaborative working environments. We did see the WeWorks and the CoWorks of the world coming up in a very big way. Are they going to be impacted significantly? And I'll put a rider on this. We want employees to travel less with the kind of travel that most people were undertaking, especially in Indian cities, and the kind of time we were spending on the roads. Will you see these co-working spaces becoming maybe mini disaggregated?
Sorry, I think your video is...
Sorry? Deepak, are you facing a problem?
No, it's coming. Yeah.
Okay, please carry on. I'm sorry. Anshuman, two things that I asked you. One is, will we see disaggregated regional spaces so that employees staying in far off places need to travel less? And the second one is, what is the future of co-working spaces?
Okay, I'll come with the second question. Co-working, which, as you know, became a huge discussion point, and there was quite a bit of expansion globally on the co-working space. Co-working is here to stay. There will be challenges in the short term. The reason is obvious because the overall demand and what happens. But in the medium to long term, the co-working will come back, and the reason for that is that co-working provides flexibility to corporations. So today, and especially when the economy is in a slow mode, if the companies want to set up some business, set up an office space, instead of putting money in and doing fit outs and everything are capital intensive, instead of putting money in fit out and not knowing what the future growth is, co-working space provides you the flexibility that your capex is actually all non-existent. You take up the space, and in case you want to reduce it, you can reduce it. In fact, you want to expand, you can expand. So that's one of the main reasons why. Besides, of course, all the facilities and everything just is provided there. You meet other people. So co-working space will continue to grow, but will.
Is it the same level? Will you see it spiking, or will you see it dipping? What's your
in the short term? There'll be a slowdown. There is no doubt. There'll be a slowdown because of the overall market thing, and this is a global issue because there is a lot of space which has come out. But in the medium term to long term, there will be healthy demand for co-working space for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's just a short-term situation, but medium term it will come back. Not even long term, I feel medium term it will come back, where companies realize that the flexibility co-working spaces provide them, they cannot get if they just go after the office space. Regarding the travel, overall, travel certainly will take long to come back. And reason for that is, of course, people have also realized, I think one other myth which is busted because of COVID is that I think most people have realized, the companies realize that you really don't need to travel as much, that people, as much as they've done in the past to get work done. Yeah. So no doubt that there is no substitute of meeting personally, but then you can work out in a way that you don't have to travel as much as in the past. So I think travel will certainly come down, at least in the near future. You never know, after 2, 3, 4 years, human memory is maybe short and people just get back into planes and going. But I think travel certainly will be less. And the other thing is also leaving the office side, people have realized that even in the supply chain, that you have to be local. Because in this COVID, the borders, not only international borders, but domestic borders were sealed. So how do you move people and materials, So there would be that whole model of developing, especially in the supply chain side, local, so that you're not dependent on cross-border movement. And that may also have some impact on the even people side, that they would be maybe more local hiring, so that you don't have, in case there is a border cross-border movement is restricted, then you don't have to depend on that.
So which cities do you think, city to city, is there a variation in the kind of commercial office demand that you're going to see? What's your sense?
Yeah, city, if you look at since last few years, Bangalore is the #1 city for office space. I mean, that continues to dominate the office space market, is where all the technology firms are, where the supplies, etc. I feel Bangalore will continue to dominate the office space market. But then we have had surprise like Hyderabad. So if you look at over the years, suddenly Hyderabad has come up, which has had quite a bit of space taken by the corporations. But primarily, the three markets of NCR, Mumbai, and Bangalore are the key markets. I would say Hyderabad and Pune are the two other ones which have seen a lot of activity. So they will continue. Of course, we have growth happening in Chennai. We see people going to Kochi, and Calcutta also in its own. You see movement happening, not as much, but still, So all the major cities in India, because of the way the population is, where the infrastructure is, will see office space take up. But Bangalore will lead, and I would say cities like Gurgaon is another one, which I'm just thinking you can't escape the name of Gurgaon. It's a major office market. Has and what, as you know, what happens is, because large corporations are already established here, and these hubs, the biggest thing is not people, it's not the real estate cost, it's the talent. So all these cities, the cities which can attract the best talent, will see companies going there and taking up space. And that's why the reason, leaving aside Gurgaon, NCR, Mumbai, Delhi, the reason why Pune or Hyderabad have come up is because they are magnet of talent, and the result of that is all the corporations are there.
You have seen a lot of people traveling out of the big cities back home, and this could be the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Do you expect, at least in the short term, the next year or two, that these markets will emerge as hubs for commercial?
You're talking about, sorry, tier 2, tier 3 cities?
That's right.
To be honest, not really. Okay. There will be, of course, some space take up in the tier 3 cities or 2 cities, but nothing which will move the needle. And the reason for that is that, if you look at, again, NCR, Mumbai, Greater Mumbai, and Bangalore, from the real estate point of view, frankly, this is where the infrastructure is, both social and urban and everything. And supply of office space, because of the suburban development in all these areas, the cost of the office space there in the suburbs, and if you go down further, is almost same as going to a tier 2 city. So there's not a significant cost saving on real estate side, if you really look at from a suburb in the major city to a tier 2 city, right? So that's not the attraction. And second is talent. I would say talent is first, actually, but in this point, second is that, so wherever talent goes, the tier 3 people in tier 3, the young people, they want to move to tier 1 city, right? So yes, they do. If they get jobs, a lot of them would want to stay there, but majority still is like going, for them, it's, going maybe ahead in life. So they're moving to the thing. So end of the day, talent still will continue to be in the major cities. The infrastructure is in the major cities. And going forward, no doubt tier 3, tier 2 towns will see more companies going there, but it will still be a small percentage.
There have been, you spoke about how we're going local and the importance of being local. If you look at Hyderabad, the west, where the Madhapur area, Gachibowli and so on, people live there, work there, get themselves entertained, educated. They spend their entire lives there. Whitefield, another cluster that happened. You spoke about Gurgaon. It's a microcosm by itself. Are you going to see more of this in the large city?
Certainly, there'll be more of this. And the reason, again, is that it's all to do with infrastructure. Now infrastructure, safety, convenience, public transport. So till the time and it will change over a period of time, but it only depends on infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, number one is connectivity there. So today, if you know, you get out of your house, sit in a metro, which is not where you don't have to, push your way in and be like a sardine can inside there. And it's very comfortable. You sit there like it happens in Tokyo, like it happens in London, like it happens in all the major cities. And, conveniently, you can go to a station, sit there, you get a seat, it's nicely air conditioned, and you can cover 40 kilometers in a certain time, get down, go to your work and come back. So that's not happening in India in the near future. It is happening, but not at the same speed. So that is one. And second is also what other social infrastructure there's schools, hospitals, colleges, retail malls, all that. So all that is also coming up in certain areas. And that's why a lot of the new developments, like you mentioned, not only Gurgaon or parts of Hyderabad or parts of Bangalore are becoming a mini towns by themselves, but the developers are coming with new developments where you literally don't need to go out. And that, if you see in times of COVID, has really helped. So I've got colleagues who are living in, let's say, a development in Gurgaon or Bangalore, Bombay. So they say, look, we are so, now it's really convenient because we have a small grocery store. We have a pharmacy within our apartment blocks or whatever. And the school is nearby. And he said, we don't need to go out. So it has actually helped to some extent, for those people in COVID-19 times. But of course, on the other hand, it seems like you're just confined to a certain area. But till the time overall infrastructure connectivity doesn't improve, which takes time, I would say there will be more clusters like that which will develop. And especially post-COVID, I think to the extent that there's a development in Mumbai, I don't remember the name, a colleague of mine is telling me that they had these guest rooms, which were originally made for if they're weddings, and which I thought was a good idea because in India, weddings are very big. And let's say there's a wedding happening in the family, your guests come in, you could put them in that guest room, or it's like 2 apartments in that huge apartment complex. You could rent them. So your guests are staying close to where you are staying. They converted them into COVID-19 patient or people infected with the virus to be there, quarantined in that space, so they're close to home. So, so my point was that going forward, that has given ideas to a lot of developers to provide facilities within those developments, and I think there's going to go up.
Buffer spaces, so to speak, right? They're almost like buffer spaces. They're almost like buffer spaces, which can expand into whatever you need at that point of time, right?
And it's also safety is one, because one thing we take luckily in India, safety as almost for guaranteed that you will not have an issue. But as economies develop, the crime rates also go up, and so safety is one issue. If you are in one kind of a complex, you feel safe. Then the other thing is play areas for children, interaction within the community. Then the communities develop; they feel very comfortable. And interestingly, in a lot of these cities, if you look at what has also increased, is there's more mobility of labor in India than it was, let's say, 30 years back, especially the white collar workers. And so today, if you go to Bangalore, for example, or even Hyderabad, or even Gurgaon, if you go to a typical residential apartment blocks, there'll be people from all over the country living there, right? Especially a lot of people from tier 2 cities who moved there, or people from Delhi living in Bangalore, people from Bangalore living in Mumbai. So it's really become like a microcosm of, people from different backgrounds, young people, professionals, or doing whatever, and then the children. So it's just such an environment where more and more people feel comfortable. And that's the reason I feel that this trend is here to stay.
Okay, let's talk about finance. The real estate sector has been under stress for a while. Is there enough finance for the kind of scaling up or the kind of repositioning that commercial real estate needs to undertake?
Currently, there isn't, obviously, and I'll be honest, there is the biggest challenge the market is facing is liquidity, capital, and I think these have been discussed many times, so I'm not going to repeat, what are the challenges, but certainly the capital is a big challenge. At the same time, as the market evolves, I do see that there will be more opportunities for capital. The big challenge in India is that institutions have not, the other institutions, be it insurance, pension funds, mutual funds, whatever, any other financial institutions have not really invested money in real estate like you see in mature markets, advanced countries, right? And I think that's a big opportunity, leave alone the foreign direct investment. Now, there's enough money lying with LICs and of this world. And the reason they've not been putting that much money is, of course, you have to put the policies in place, but the bigger reason is because of the risk. And I feel a risk they think that they know the real estate industry has. I think with RERA coming in place, with all the other new policies which have come in place, it will give institutions and even individuals more comfort and confidence into putting money into real estate. Yes, in the short term, there are challenges. The market is slow, and the residential market has been sort of being slow for some time. But again, the inherent demand is there in India for housing. We're still way short of the housing what the country requires, and we are seeing supply coming in affordable housing. So as the market picks up, and because of all the new policies, RERA, etc., once the institutions start putting in money, which is inevitable, it has to happen, the whole real estate market will see that capital. And then there is foreign direct investment, which again would have to allocate certain amount of money to emerging markets. And among the emerging markets, India has one of the largest population, especially the young population. So demand is there. So I do see it's a cycle. When the cycle changes, there will be international money coming into real estate, be it sovereign funds, which is already happening, but it will accelerate, or be private equity funds, or even on other institutions who will put in money into the real estate market. So yes, for short term to medium term, it will be a challenge. It's not going to go away anytime soon, but in the longer term, as the market evolves and as institutions come into real estate, they would not be a capital issue in the market.
We're talking about risk of lending to the real estate sector, yet the first REITs that we had in the country has performed even during the COVID, right? It has been one of the best performing REITs. Do you see REITs and InvITs becoming a big way of mobilizing funds for the sector?
Absolutely, it will. And that's another way when I mentioned about institutional money. So one other area is REIT. And REIT will develop. You're right, the REIT has performed really well. And it has given confidence to investors. That's something real. It took very, very long for the first REIT to come in. I foresee that, there will be, even in these COVID times, there will be more REIT structures coming into the marketplace, and they'll do well because, of the obvious reasons, the advantages REIT provides, gives more people opportunity to own real estate, and that to commercial real estate, and that to income producing real estate. So it's a great product, and India will see more REIT structures coming in place in the near future.
We've seen 8 to 9% returns out of commercial real estate. Will that continue? Will that rise? Will that dip? What is your understanding?
See, as of now, there hasn't been much movement because again, it's early days. So it depends. So one end, investments will move into income producing assets because the way the market is and the return is good. On the other hand, the challenge is the supply of income producing assets is relatively limited, right? But it will expand because we are still seeing so much leasing happening. So I would see that so movement, how it will happen will really depend on that supply demand situation. Over the years, the cap rates have come down, rightly so. They may so it's very difficult to predict where they're going to go because, like I mentioned, the demand is there. One end. On the other hand, the market is slow, so people may think, okay, there are not enough buyers. So maybe the cap rates may go up, but the flip side is even supply is not that much. So I think it's early days. Right now, it is still so any whatever limited transactions are happening, we've not seen any movement on those cap rates much because it's still at the same levels. But next 3 to 6 months, I'm sure we'll get a better picture what will happen depending on how much stock comes in the market and what happens to the economy and the real estate market. How much liquidity there is, how many people are willing to divest in next 6 months' time will determine the cap rate movement.
And a lot of, we've never faced a pandemic before in recent times, right? When tenants have not been able to pay up, it was something that, there has been a force majeure clause, but I don't think pandemic as such has been in many tenancy agreements. Do you see that changing?
Again, it's the timing. The fact is, in the office side, whatever I've spoken to the owners of office space and developers, they have been able to collect large part of their rent. So it is not a problem as of now. And this is actually, I've seen globally also, where the bigger challenge is, of course, retail. Yeah. But in office, most of the owners have been able to, I'm talking with the larger developers owners, not talking about individual smaller owners of office space. So they've been able to collect the rental. So it's not a problem as of now. Now, we will know in next few months' time, let's say this COVID thing extends and people are not able to go back to the office, then certainly there'll be renegotiations which will take place. And I'm sure that both the owners and the occupiers will reach some kind of agreement because as far as occupiers are concerned, they should realize the owners have put a lot of money, they need a return on that money, and the owners should know that the occupiers are struggling. So, what is the best way to make sure that, they can give comfort to the occupiers? As of now, it's not a huge challenge. Again, because we forget it's 3-4 months, But what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 months, 6 months? One end, a lot of the companies have started going back to the office. Work is starting. So if things pick up, then there's no issue. If things go downhill next 6 months' time, certainly then this has to be revisited and how many, companies can continue to pay that kind of rental. But as of now, it's not a big challenge. Also, the supply of office space in prime areas is still relatively limited, right? So it's not that there's a huge supply coming in prime areas. There is supply coming in, but not in the prime areas. And that will also keep the market under check because at least in the prime areas.
Are deals still happening? Large commercial deals still happening, and which cities?
Honestly, surprisingly, they're still happening. And there are companies and across the board. I mean, I wouldn't say specifically everywhere, be it Bangalore, Hyderabad or Gurgaon, across the board, transactions, people are taking space, and this is because there were expansion plans from before, there are expansion plans now. There could be some, so the transactions are happening here.
And you briefly referred to retail. Let's just close with retail. if anything has been hit worse than the tourism sector, it has been offline retail. With the kind of social distancing that will be there for the next year or two and things like that, do you see malls giving way to high streets? Do you see offline giving way to online? And what is that future of the retail as you see it?
See, in the short term, no doubt, e-commerce has really, people are ordering online, and e-commerce is what is happening. In fact, the positive impact of that is on the logistics side of the market, which is still going strong. And we are seeing e-commerce firms even now taking up space, and especially like I mentioned on going local, they're coming, locally taking more space so that they can continue the supply chain. And of course, high street, again, in certain parts, the reports we've got is that it is benefiting because high street is more open and people prefer there. But the fact remains that a mall is not only for shopping, it's entertainment, it's a family outing. There's movies, there's food, and I think the malls are here to stay. No doubt, in the short terms, the malls, because of the COVID issues, will suffer and are suffering right now. But again, in the future, the malls are there, because if you really look at a typical city, how people used to go for picnics before, they go to malls. It's like a picnic, it's air conditioned, so it's even better. And there's a huge choice for everybody, from a young kid to a middle-aged person to an old man. Everybody has something to do in a mall, right? What is the substitute? What would you do, people who are earning money and who want to live? What would you do on a weekend? And that's the reason people go to malls, because it's not, again, there's shopping, no doubt, but there's whole entertainments like spending time with the family or just going out. So malls are here to stay. We as a country are still undersupplied as far as malls are concerned. So there could be pockets in some city. You'll say, oh, there are 5 malls in that location, 2 are not doing well, 1 is doing well, 2 are just doing things like that. That's fine. But as the income levels increase, as there are more young people coming in every year into the job market, migration from rural to urban areas, etc., the demand for malls will remain. So again, short term, there will be a challenge. People are a bit concerned of being in crowded areas, but I think malls will bounce back. And it's, again, we are undersupplied as far as malls are concerned compared to the population of India.
But the facilities management of malls is going to change significantly, right? With the new hygiene norms that are there.
Yes, but again, Jayashree, I feel that all this, this, no doubt there'll be better. You look at, how, on the hygiene factor of mall, distancing, etc., will be there. But I don't know, 3 years down the line, I mean, my feel is everybody is going to just come back. It'll be normal, because you can't control. You're going to an airport, or you're in a wedding, or you are in a mall. You can't just say that for the rest of our lives we will be socially distant. So once the vaccine comes in, people get comfortable back that, look, yes, maybe this virus is around, but there is a cure, or if you get it, you'll be cured. Once that comfort comes in, human memory is not that long. And even now, people who have not got it, you still don't feel, you still want to interact. So I think it's all going to come back. No doubt there will be norms of, on hygiene, cleanliness will even go up in the malls. People will ask questions, if they're going to a mall, what are the safety measures there? So all that is good. Actually, it's going to take it to the next level. But after, I don't know, it's 1 year or 2 years, depending on how soon this whole COVID situation improves, I think people are going to be back. But the good part is they'll be back in crowded places, but those places will have better health and hygiene safety factors.
And last question to you is, do you see the investors coming back?
When you say investors, there are all different kinds of investors. We are already, there are investments happening as of now. There are international private equity funds, or you can say, investment companies who are putting in money because they see there's an opportunity. They feel strong about India's future and feel there are opportunities right now to invest and take a position. But overall, and then there are individuals. The one end, what is ironic is that there's shortage of capital. Yeah. The flip side is there's a lot of capital sitting to invest and they don't have opportunities, right? And they can't find opportunities to put in money. So as this situation, the COVID situation relaxes, my expectation is a lot of money will be released globally. This is not including India, which has been sitting on the sidelines for some time to look for opportunities to put in money. So again, right now, investors are not going to come in hordes. That will take time. But India being an emerging market, being and one of the markets that still has headroom for growth because we are so behind, investors will certainly come back, but obviously not happening in the short term.
And on that positive note, I'm going to close this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Anshuman. We were talking about the future of commercial real estate, and that's Anshuman Magazine. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshi.